And we're back with Dr. Blayne Haggart, professor of political science, and you and I have been going back and forth. So towards the end of the show, what's your best advice to our prime minister on this? Because we aren't going to have such a comprehensive agreement. Should we really be building Canada, or do we have to, look at, as he says, Europe or maybe Asia?
I think we have to do both. I think that, but what
we
we
can
have
do
to
a lot of things, can't we?
We can if we want to. I mean, a government that is facing an existential crisis, for instance, should not be cutting taxes. A government that basically is facing kind of like the loss of external capacity to approve drugs and to oversee kind of like food safety should not be cutting government programs. And so when you start with that kind of attitude and that approach, it's not fit for purpose in a 21st century where we need basically stronger government to do kind of government-y type jobs.
Well, I mean, government type jobs about like approving drugs, absolutely. Policing, so we don't have all these fentanyl labs across Canada, and there's many of them. So we do need, but we are masters of our own house. But then what about our economy? It's, it's the economy, stupid. We need to have these jobs, right?
Yeah, but the other thing too is we also have to recognize that there will be, no matter what happens, there's going to be a hit. Because certainty with the United States isn't in the cards anymore. So we have to go into it with that attitude. And we're going to have to realize that building up the Canadian economy and diversifying trade is going to be a big issue. I mean, even on setting up trade agreements, Canada, it has been, we've loved trade agreements. The problem has always been follow through and getting industry, able and capable of entering into these new markets. That's going to cost money.
It's going to cost money, and it's going to take some conviction because Canada, we have so many bureaucrats. We need the regulators. I understand that, but we really are not very good at making trade agreements. We should have one.
Oh, we're good at making trade agreements. We're just not very good at basically getting business to follow through. And so that involves capacity building, and it involves more bureaucrats, and it involves more regulators.
So I mean, again, back to our point at the start, it'd be nice to have Parliament discussing these things so we can have Canadians have an idea what's going on. Our Prime Minister just recently is into another controversy over his investments. He said early on, I have cash and my real estate. And now it seems like he has a vast portfolio with oil and gas companies and other things. And he said he didn't. Is that, you're a political scientist, is that a serious problem?
I think it kind of shows why it's important to have actual politicians running. And this is the appeal of the outsider, which is basically that, they don't have a record to run on. And so, this is what sunk Justin Trudeau, it sunk Brian Mulroney, it sunk Stephen Harper, and so on and so on. But what it means, though, is that we know how people would react. We would kind of have a better idea about what Chrystia Freeland would have done as prime minister.
No one knew this guy before, did they?
And well, not as a
unless you were British,
and or paying attention to the Central Bank of Canada in the early 2000s. And the problem is that a central banker does not have the same skills as a politician. They have a very narrow remit of what they focus on. Their thing is keep inflation under control. They're also they're complete masters of their own house because they're isolated from political power or from political influence, I should say. So this is kind of where we've ended up with the prime minister that we have right now is basically a political neophyte who basically didn't get a full background check that, after 10 years, no one would be surprised by pretty much anything that happened with Justin Trudeau or Stephen Harper or Jean Chrétien going on because they had a record.
Well, they had a record in Parliament, but no one knew about Trudeau and the blackface or the other rumors that have been preceding it.
It came out in the first couple of years, but 10 years in, we know who these people are. We would have had a kind of a good idea of what they were due. And the perfect example of this is Jean Chrétien. I mean, how many decades was he in power? By the time he became prime minister, people said, "Okay, we've got kind of a feel for this guy."
No, you're absolutely right. But people wanted relief from Trudeau. They wanted a new leader, and there was going the whole elbows up thing. Carney was going to be the big shot to deal with Trump. And so, did we get sold a bill of goods?
I think a little bit, and this gets back to the disconnect that I started with. It's the disconnect between what Prime Minister has been saying about distancing ourselves from the United States and his actions, which between, for instance, pursuing a comprehensive agreement and also kind of cutting taxes and cutting government spending seems to be that's kind of keeping us on the course towards deeper integration.
I think you're absolutely right. That's why you're a professor. Thank you for coming on. We're out of time, but you've been very illustrative of what's going on. And so thank you again. You're smart on that one. And I mentioned the Prime Minister, his political troubles. Tune in a week from now because we're going to have another guest talking about how our prime minister could survive and how he may not survive, because I think he's in a serious, serious situation.